ठीक है. So we were talking about how we need to live in coexistence with everything. We have to live in coexistence with other people, but we also have to live in coexistence with the jungles, the forests, the plants, the animals, the birds, and all of that. And if we are unable to do even that, then clearly we have no sort of wisdom or knowledge or any scientific acumen, because that is the minimum prerequisite for being able to live happily. Um, and in that context, he had discussed the previous systems where the first option the knowledge systems had provided was a sort of system of understanding in which humans were thought of as machines, and the goal was seen to be consumption and accumulation. Then that leads to individualism. Then the other system of knowledge, which comes from idealism, thinks of the purpose of human living to be devotion, and basically, yeah. So he said he had divided those into two parts. One was idealistic purpose was devotion, and the other idealistic purpose was detachment. So in devotion, since that is also faith-based, no two faiths can be the same, and faith cannot be universalized. And so that also leads to groupism and basically divisions in society. And gradually, those groups become smaller and smaller and smaller, and that leads to individualism. And then naturally, idealism, the kind of idealism that preaches detachment, that naturally leads to idealism, because that is about detaching oneself from the rest of the world and doing whatever penance of some sort. So that also leads to individualism. And individualism is inherently contrary to coexistence, in which, and the nature of existence is coexistence, which means that things are together, things are complementary, and harmoniously complementary. So what our knowledge system has to do is understand what coexistence is. And then he went on to talk about how coexistence is basically nature being saturated in this omnipresent omnipotence. And each entity of nature because it is saturated in this omnipresent omnipotence, it is with its particular uniqueness. Every single entity is a system in itself, as well as part of a larger system. So, and then he said that similarly, humans also need to find a way of being systems or orderly in themselves, and then also be able to participate in the larger order. And in doing that, he said, what we need to understand is what what the human is, what our self is, who are we, and also then our uniqueness. And um, this set of understanding the self and the ness of the self. This is because it is the self, the entity that is orderly and participates in the larger order, but it does so by virtue of its uniqueness. So we must understand both the entity and its uniqueness. So the self and the selfness in totality has to be understood. And he started out talking about how have we gone about understanding the self. And he said, until we understand the self as the body, we live in delusion and we cause ourselves misery. But as soon as I start recognizing myself as the Jeevan, as this conscious entity, this configurationally complete atom, by that moment onwards, from that very moment, I find that I began to live in an orderly way. So this is where we had kind of paused.
परिपूर्ण माने प्रक्रिया है, ऐसी बनी हुई है। कितना ये आप भी वैसे ही पाओगे। इसके पहले होने वाला नहीं है, इसके बाद और कुछ जरूरत नहीं है, बात ऐसी बनी हुई है।
Right. So this he is talking about here is that this, I was able to see that from the very moment I began to recognize myself as the Jeevan, I began to live in order. And now he's saying that you will also find it to be the same way, because it is not going to happen before this recognition of the self as the Jeevan. It is not going to, and then nothing more is needed after this recognition. So this recognition of the self as the Jeevan allows us to live in order. And after living in order, there is nothing else left to do. So that is what he's saying. It's not going to happen before this, and there is nothing to be done after this.
कितना ये प्रकृति सहज, अस्तित्व सहज, सहज.
Hello, Manjuji, you are you're quite on time, because we just started again.
How come I'm on time?
Because we started chatting.
Wow. I have some visitors. That is how I got late coming online. So I'll put my headphones and I'll hear.
Okay.
One second. You carry on, you start, and I'll sit with them, but I'll just put on my headphones and just let me get them.
कितना ये प्रकृति सहज, अस्तित्व सहज, सह अस्तित्व सहज, परिपूर्ण माने प्रक्रिया है, आप स्वयं सोच सकते हैं.
What a naturally complete, existentially complete and coexistentially complete process this is. You can see for yourself, you can think for yourself.
इससे ज्यादा हो नहीं सकती, इससे कम में हो नहीं सकती, उतने में ही होता.
There can be no more than this, and there is no less than this, in the sense that there is no and we won't feel sufficient, fulfilled before this. So he's saying there can be no more than this, and there can be no less than this.
जीवन समझ में आ गया जीवन को. अगर इसमें और एक मार्मिक बात है, जीवन को समझने वाला जीवन है. सबसे बड़ी भारी बात ये है.
So once the Jeevan understands the Jeevan, and this is another very beautiful point in this, that the one that understands is also the Jeevan. That is one of the biggest points here, that the thing that is understanding is also the Jeevan.
समझने वाला, समझने की वस्तु, ये दोनों अलग अलग एक. इस मुद्दे पर बहुत ज्यादा आदर्शवादियों ने चर्चा की है.
That the one that understands and the entity to be understood, are they separate? Are they the same? On this, the idealists have had a lot of discourse on this issue.
उनके अनुसार जो त्रिपुटी कहते हैं, जो दृश्य, दृष्टा, दृश्य, इन तीनों एक होने पर ही मुक्ति मिलती है.
According to them, whatever this fulfillment is considered, according to them, this fulfillment is when the drishya, drishti, drishta. So drishya is the sight, the drishti is the, sorry, it's difficult to, let me see how they've done it. Okay, let's just elaborate it in words. Drishya, drishti, drishta. Drishya is the thing that is seen. Drishti is the perspective of seeing, and drishta is the one that sees. So, according to the idealists, when the drishya, drishti, and drishta become the same, that is what fulfillment is all about. So, the one who is seeing, the drishta, the drishti, the perspective with which it is being seen, and the drishya, which is the entity to be seen. When all of these are the same entity, same thing, then that leads to fulfillment according to the idealists. let me just say, is it drishti or darshan?
Can you give it in form of an example?
आदर्शवादियों ने चर्चा की है। उनके अनुसार जो ये जो त्रिपुटी कहते हैं, जो दृश्य दृष्टा दृश्य, इन
दृश्य दृष्टा दृश्य, he said again.
तीनों एक, उनके अनुसार जो ये जो त्रिपुटी कहते हैं, जो दृश्य दृष्टा दृश्य, इन तीनों एक होने पर ही मुक्ति मिलती है।
Slip of tongue.
इसका मतलब ईश्वर ही देखने वाला है, ईश्वर ही दृश्य है, ईश्वर ही जो कुल मिलाकर के दर्शन है।
It was darshan, not drishti. So he actually, in idealism, it says that fulfillment or tripti is when the entity to be seen, the entity that sees, that sees, and darshan, the whole process of viewing, that vision, when all three of these are the same, then that is fulfillment. And this is an idealistic perspective, no? That is the discourse going on in idealistic traditions. So they say when the thing to be seen is also God, when the one that is seeing is also God, and the whole process of seeing is also God, then that itself is fulfillment.
तीनों का एक रूपता होने पर ही वो हमारा मुक्ति का कारण है।
So it is only on the unity of these three that leads to our liberation.
बाकी कुछ भी दिखता है, कुछ भी समझ में आता है, उस स्थिति तक वो बंधन में ही रहता है। इस प्रकार के कुछ कहना चाहते हैं। इन्हीं आधारों पर बहुत सारा वांग्मय रचा गया।
And if there is anything else, if all other things that are seen are all causes of our delusion, sorry, of our bondage itself. It is only such a vision that is the cause of liberation. All other sights are all causes of bondage and nothing else. And based on this principle, they have talked about so much else.
इन्हीं आधारों पर बहुत सारा वांग्मय रचा गया।
And just based on just this much, they have written such a large amount of literature.
तो इतना सारा रचने की बाद भी मुख्य बात वो समझ में नहीं आया, ईश्वर क्या है, कैसा है, क्यों है, इस बात का उत्तर मिला नहीं।
But despite composing this vast literature, they were unable to understand or answer, Ishwar, where is this God? What is this God and why is this God?
ये बाकी उसके ऊपर कही हुई सारे बात मनुष्य सुनता है, बहुत अच्छा लगता है, ये बात देखा गया।
All the rest of the discourse regarding God, humans have talked about and have heard also, and that they find pleasing also to listen to. But these three questions basically have not been addressed or answered.
अच्छा लगने में, अच्छा होने में दूरी यथावत बना रहा।
And this distance between feeling good and actually being good, that distance constantly remained. Manjuji, you were asking for examples, so I think he answered that.
No, it's okay because that's what the other drishtis is not not Jeevan Vidya ka, but traditional. That's okay.
जैसा पहले दिन में बना रहा, आज भी उतनी ही दूरी बनी हुई है।
So, in the same way, this distance has remained between feeling good and actually being good, in the same way as it did on the very first day of this thought and even till today.
ये बहुत मुद्दे की बात है।
This is a very pertinent point.
ये बाद के जो बात आई, जो मनुष्य को यंत्र ही बताना शुरू किया, भाई लोगों ने, वो तो बता नहीं पाए।
And after that, what happened was that they started calling humans machines, our brothers, but they were unable to really explain that.
और उसके बाद भी बताते जाते हैं, वैसे ही पहले भी हुआ, तो ईश्वर को बता नहीं पाए, ईश्वर को बताते ही रहे।
And yet they keep on claiming that they are that we are machines. And this is what happened earlier as well. They were unable to explain God, and yet they continue to claim that this is how things are.
यही प्रैक्टिस पहले भी रहा है, यही अभी भी वैसे ही प्रक्रिया आज भी है.
The same practice existed earlier as well, and that very same practice continues even till today.
तो हम मनुष्य को यांत्रिक बताना चाहते हैं, बता नहीं पाते हैं, फिर भी बताते ही जाते हैं.
So we wish to explain humans as machines mechanically, but we are unable to, and yet we continue doing the same.
ये आज भी हम भोग ही रहे हैं. इस ढंग से हम
So this is something that we continue to experience even today. भोग ही रहे हैं नहीं, to that we are subjected to even today.
फंस चुके हैं, अच्छी तरह से फंस चुके हैं. उससे अलग होकर के कुछ सोच नहीं पाते हैं. अब थोड़ा दिन झेलते हैं, उसके बाद अपना भी हाथ पैर ठंडा हो जाता है, उसी नदी में बह जाते हैं.
In this way, we have been trapped, properly trapped. Because of this, we are unable to think of in any other way. And when we become dissatisfied with it, we again become, after a few days, our feet, we get cold feet, and then go back to joining the very same stream as we had earlier.
इसी ढंग से हम सब डूबते जा रहे हैं, ये बात.
And in this way, we all continue to drown. That is the point.
अब इससे कैसे छुटकारा पाया जाए वाला बात आती है, वो इसी विधि से आता है कि जीवन तो नित्य है. शरीर जो है एक जीवन के लिए एक बारंबार घटना है.
So now how do we free ourselves from this? The way to free ourselves is that this Jeevan is eternal, and the body is a repetitive occurrence, a repetitive incident for this Jeevan.
शरीर का रचना
A recurring incident for the Jeevan.
भाषा में होता है और अस्तित्व सहज रूप में परमाणु विकसित होकर जीवन पद में होता है.
And the body is composed in the womb, whereas the Jeevan emerges out of existentially natural process of evolution in existence.
और शरीर बारंबार रचित होता है, विरचित होता है. इस रचना का विरचना होना आवश्यक है ही है.
Then the body again and again is composed and then decomposes, and this decomposition of this composition is a necessary fact.
यदि नहीं होगा तो धरती पर आदमी खड़े होने की जगह ही नहीं रहेगी.
If it weren't happen, if it didn't happen, then there would be no space for humans to stand on this planet.
तो आदमी जात जितने भी पैदा हुआ सब यहीं रह जाए तो उसके बाद आदमी खड़े होने की जगह नहीं मिलेगी.
If all the humans that were ever born were to remain here itself, then there will be no room left for any human to set foot on the planet.
डब्बे ही भर जाए, पूरा धरती भर जाए, इस ढंग से हो जाने की व्यवस्था.
Our box would be completely packed and full. This earth would be completely full. So in this way, this is something to be understood.
ये तो होना नहीं है. तो प्राणावस्था की अपना एक अंतिम सीमा है. जितना ज्यादा उन्नत हो सकता है उसका निश्चयन है. तो शरीर भी उसी के तहत में है.
So this is never going to happen. Even the biological order has its own limit, in which it has a limit till which it can grow and prosper, and after that it decomposes. And the human body also falls within this category.
प्राणावस्था के वस्तु से ही, कोशावन से ही और रचना विधि से ही रचित एक शरीर है. ये शरीर रचना में विशेषता यही है, मेधस की संपूर्ण जितना विकसित मेधस होना था वो सब हो चुका है.
So this body is also an entity composed of units of the biological order, using the genetic code and the genetic process. And the only difference that lies in the human body is that this nervous system or this brain is as rich as yeah, endowed as it could have been.
संपूर्ण जितना विकसित मेधस होना था वो सब हो चुका है.
Yeah. That it is as rich and endowed, as evolved as it could, as it needed to become. So that is the only distinguishing factor between the rest of the biological order and our human body, because we are also made up of the same biological cells.
वो इस आधार पर मैं इस बात को सत्यापित कर रहा हूं कि तो मनुष्य जो है ना अस्तित्व संपूर्ण को दूसरे को संप्रेषित कर सकता है. इससे ज्यादा मेधस का कोई प्रयोजन नहीं है.
So on which basis am I stating such a fact? The fact that the brain is as evolved as it needed to get. So on which basis am I stating this fact? It is that this human being is capable of expressing existence in its entirety. Let me listen to it again.
कि तो मनुष्य जो है ना अस्तित्व संपूर्ण को दूसरे को संप्रेषित कर सकता है.
Right. So this human being is capable of communicating and expressing the entirety of existence to another. And what more is needed beyond that by this brain?
इससे ज्यादा मेधस का कोई प्रयोजन नहीं है.
So there is no purpose of the brain beyond this.
और जीवन की समग्र क्रियाकलापों को इस मेधस के द्वारा दूसरे आदमी को हम संप्रेषित कर पाते हैं.
Yes. And through via this brain, we are able to express all the activities of this Jeevan to other human beings.
ये परमावधि उपलब्धि है.
This is the ultimate achievement.
रचना इस आधार पर मैं कहता हूँ मानव शरीर का रचना अपने आप में जो प्राण सूत्र प्राण रचना विधि के आधार पर अनुसंधान होते होते वो बहुत श्रेष्ठतम रचना के रूप में हो गई है.
On that basis, I am saying that the human body's composition has reached the most ultimate, the greatest evolved state that it could have reached, that it needed to have reached by way of this genetic, what was it, did he say? By way of this genetic enterprise and this genetic, what I'll try to see exact words that he used.
जो प्राण सूत्र प्राण रचना विधि के आधार पर अनुसंधान होते होते वो बहुत श्रेष्ठतम रचना.
Yeah, so based on this genetic code and this by way of anusandhan, by way of exploration based on the genetic code, this bodily composition has arrived at the most evolved, the greatest form that it needed to have or could have arrived at.
के रूप में हो गई है. यदि और भी कोई चीज बचा होगा आगे और अच्छी हो जाएगी. इससे घटिया तो होना नहीं है. जहां तक हो गया उसका तो परंपरा बनी चुकी है.
And if there is anything left to be achieved, then it will reach that also eventually. It is not going to get any worse because whatever it has reached, it's the tradition of that at least has been established already.
आपको भी पता है, मुझे भी पता है कि ये मुख्य एक मुद्दा यहाँ से आता है.
This is something you also recognize, know, and even I know. And so this is one important point.
राहत पाने की मुद्दा यहाँ आता है.
This is a point to derive comfort from, to derive relief from.
इसमें क्या निष्कर्ष होता है? शरीर का तो निश्चित है कि गर्भाशय में रचित हुई है और अंत में कहीं ना कहीं कोई वीरान जगह में अंत होगा.
And what is this conclusion? That the body is somewhere or the other has been composed in the womb, and somewhere or the other in some place, Viran Jagah said, some isolated place, it will also end up decomposing.
उस जगह को मरघट कहते हैं.
That place is called the Marghat, would be like the cremation ground, I suppose.
इसका अंतिम प्रक्रिया वहीं होती है. ये दोनों बात को हम भी जानते हैं, सब जानते हैं.
And that is where its ultimate its ultimate process will take place. And this is something that we also know, that everyone knows.
ये बात हो गई. इस बीच में शरीर यात्रा में हमको क्या करना है?
So this is done. And between these 2 points, within our bodily journey, what do we have to do?
तो जीवन अपने जागृति को प्रमाणित करना है. इतने ही तो काम है.
So the Jeevan needs to evidence its awakening. That is the only work to be done.
जागृति को प्रमाणित करने के क्रम में हम जैसा ही शुरू किए जागृति के लिए, तो हमारा संवेदना की जगह से छूटने की काम बनाना है.
So now in this progression of trying to evidence our awakening, when we go about trying to do that, we found that we were unable to free ourselves from being driven by our sensitivities.
ना विज्ञान विधि से आई, ना ज्ञान विधि से, माने आदर्शवादी विधि से आया नहीं.
Neither did this freeing happen through the scientific method, nor did it happen through this knowledge or idealistic wisdom tradition.
यह घोर तप के रूप में इस बात को बहुत लोगों ने प्रदर्शित किया है. तो हम सांस लेना बंद करके बैठा रहूंगा, देखना ही बंद कर दूंगा, सुनना ही बंद कर दूंगा. ठीक है. इस प्रकार की सारे संवेदनाओं के विरोध में तप को बताई गई है. वो तपस्वी, बहुत सारे तपस्वी हुए धरती पर, किंतु वो तपस्या का परिणाम में एक निश्चित समझदारी जिसके लिए मानव तरस रहा है, वो चीज व्यवहार में आया.
So in favor towards this end, a lot of penance, what are people who do penance, what are they called? Tapasvi? Penitents? Yeah, I think. So towards this end, a lot of penitents have done a whole lot of penance over the years, over the generations, in the sense that they have done penance in which they would, stop listening to anything, hold their breath and stop breathing, or not eat anything. So towards this end of subduing all sensory inputs, they have put in a lot of efforts over the generations. There have been several such penitents. And yet, despite all of these efforts by such penitents to overcome all sensory inputs, it resulted in no real understanding that humankind had been thirsty for this whole time.
समझदारी जिसके लिए मानव तरस रहा है, वो चीज व्यवहार में आया नहीं.
So no such understanding that humankind had been तरसने को क्या कहते हैं?
It's a longing.
Huh?
Longing.
Yeah, that humankind had been longing for. No such understanding could come into conduct, come into their behavior.
परंपरा में बहा नहीं.
And it did not flow through the traditions.
अब तपस्वी क्या पाए क्या खोए, इसको तो वही सत्यापित कर सकते हैं, दूसरा कोई सत्यापित कराएगा नहीं.
So now then, what did these penitents achieve and what did they lose? That is something only they can declare. No one else can declare for them.
अब सामान्य लोग क्या सोचते रहे उसको हम जानता हूं। सामान्य लोग ऐसे तपस्वियों से चमत्कार और सिद्धि की अपेक्षा की है।
But then what were the average people, what did the average people continue to expect from such penitents? That is something I know. The average person continued to expect miracles and superpowers from such penitents.
उसके पीछे लट्टू होकर के घूमे हैं, ये हम जानता हूं। तो हम आपको ये बताना चाहते हैं, अस्तित्व में ना तो सिद्धि है ना चमत्कार है। अस्तित्व में निश्चित।
Sorry, penitent is not quite the same thing. It's someone
aesthetics or something, na? Aesthetic, yeah. Ascetic.
Ascetic. Yes. Maybe ascetic is a better word. Yes. Ascetics. All right. So yes.
Or Rita,
Mystics and ascetic.
ascetic is more correct for everything.
Yeah. Basically, people who
so
are
much in trend.
Yeah, I think what was expected from them was to become mystics, but they themselves, what they were actually really doing was becoming ascetics, basically depriving themselves of all sensory input through self-discipline of some sort and penance of some sort. So yeah, so what people were expecting of such ascetics was the fact that they would have certain superpowers or be able to do some miracles, and they would fawn after such people for such miracles and superpowers. Lattu hoke unke piche pade rahe means they became like fanatics after them.
Spinning top.
Yeah. But basically like fanatics who would just like a top, they would follow them around, revolve around them, hoping that they would do certain miracles in their favor.
निश्चित व्यवस्था है, निश्चित ना चमत्कार है। अस्तित्व में है, अस्तित्व में ये हम जानता हूं। तो हम आपको ये बताना चाहते हैं, अस्तित्व में ना तो सिद्धि है ना चमत्कार है।
So this is something that I know, the fact that this is what people have been expecting from ascetics. And yet I would like to share with you that in existence, neither are there any miracles nor are there any superpowers.
अस्तित्व में निश्चित व्यवस्था है, निश्चित परिणाम है, निश्चित उपलब्धि है, निश्चित मंजिल है।
Existence consists of a definite order, of definite consequences, definite क्या बोलो?
Goal, destination.
हाँ, definite achievements and definite destination.
परिणाम है, निश्चित उपलब्धि है, निश्चित मंजिल है। उसकी निरंतरता है।
And its continuity. And the continuity of these.
इसको मैंने देखा है, मैंने समझा है। वो ऐसी निश्चित मंजिल के लिए आप हम प्रत्याशी हैं।
This is something I have seen, I have understood. And for such a definite destination, we are all expectants. We all await such a definite destination.
वो निश्चित विधि से ही वो निश्चित मंजिल मिलने वाला है, नहीं तो वो भी मिलने वाला नहीं है।
And it is only with this definite methodology that we will attain that definite destination. Otherwise, we won't even attain that destination.
तो वो क्या है? मनुष्य का अध्ययन से ही मनुष्य का निश्चित मंजिल मिलने वाला है।
And what is that? It is that it is only with the study of human beings that human beings will attain their definite destination.
लोहा का अध्ययन से हम मनुष्य का मंजिल को पाएंगे नहीं।
With the study of iron, we will not attain the destination for human beings.
आप ये मान लीजिए तो हम
You can accept this much, or please accept this much.
रासायनिक खाद बना करके मनुष्य का मंजिल को हम पाएंगे नहीं.
By making chemical fertilizers, we will not attain the destination for humans.
ठीक है. जो जितने भी हम कीटनाशक दवाइयों को बना करके हम मनुष्य का मंजिल को पाएंगे नहीं.
And by making all these pesticides, chemical pesticides, we will not attain the destination of human beings, for human beings.
नहीं. जितने भी जो मनुष्य की मानसिकता को और एक धन के रूप में, एक शोषण के रूप में प्रयोग करके भी मनुष्य अपने मंजिल को पाएगा नहीं.
And then utilizing the mentality of humankind as some sort of resource and exploiting that as some sort of resource also will not lead us to attaining the human destination. There's a very pointed critique actually of human resource, when we think about it.
Mishra, you mean mental power? No, mentality is more like thought process. Do you mean thought process or?
Yeah, he's talking about the mental processes and mental powers of human beings. So when we go about trying to best utilize or best exploit human thinking power or the power of human imagination, when we think of it as some sort of resource that we need to exploit and utilize for greater greater profits or whatever, greater productivity, then that he is calling exploitation of human mansikta, which is, if you think about it, that is what human resource, when we think of human beings and human society as human resource, that is what he is critiquing. Because that is converting human beings to just means. They are means in achieving some material ends rather than ends in themselves or something valuable in themselves.
Very solid point, no?
Yeah, very, very, very pointed and very deep, I think.
We take it as though that is free,
Yeah, yeah. Something that we don't have to pay for.
Yeah.
So that becomes another issue to be understood. Then that is what the question of what is the value of humans anyway? If they are not just the means to attaining some greater material wealth, then what are they? If they are not the means, then what are they? If then they are the ends, but then what sort of ends are they? What is their value? What is the value of the human being? And so where are these powers of the human being? What is their significance and what is the respect of such powers then? So if we are employing someone to just be, say, computing something from morning till night, they're employing a lot of their powers. Maybe say we're giving them a lot of money for it. But is that the right use of that? I mean, that means we're using that individual without paying attention to the value of that individual, that value of his power of computing and what it's supposed to be for. Value means what it is there for. What is its real purpose? And then we are not respecting that because, of course, we don't understand what its real purpose is. So what are human powers meant for? If we don't understand that, then we cannot do justice to them. So therefore, we cannot have any fair, just system of work even. So forget, like, relationships is one thing, but work is also another thing. So this is an important aspect to be thinking about, which is also what he is critiquing here.
उसका नाम दिया है इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी.
Oh, sorry, not human resource.
Right.
He was talking about. So it has been given the name intellectual property rights. I'll repeat this once again.
को और एक धन के रूप में, एक शोषण के रूप में प्रयोग करके भी मनुष्य अपने मंजिल को पाए।
Right. So we cannot use by using the human mental powers as some sort of resource, some sort of wealth, some sort of exploitative mechanism also, humans will not be able to attain their destination.
नहीं, उसका नाम दिया है इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी राइट,
And the name given to that is intellectual property right.
ये विश्व के सर्वोपरि संस्थाओं ने इसको स्वीकारना चाह रहे हैं, न्यायालय इसको स्वीकारना चाह रहे हैं। क्या मनुष्य अपने विवेक को प्रयोग भी कर रहा है?
So this is something that the largest, the topmost organizations of the world, the topmost courts of justice in the world are trying to adopt. Is the human being even employing their own discretion, their discernment and their judgment on this?
स्वीकारना चाह रहे हैं, क्या मनुष्य अपने विवेक को प्रयोग भी कर रहा है? ऐसा सोचा जाए।
That must be questioned.
जबकि मैंने ये देखा है, जो जीवन में जो जीवन शक्तियां अक्षय है, उसको कहाँ एक लिमिटेशन किया जाए, उसको भोग द्रव्य के रूप में कैसा उपयोग करोगे?
Whereas what I have seen is that in the Jeevan, these mental powers are inexhaustible. So how are you going to limit those, and how are you going to turn them into some unit of consumption?
ये क्या इसको पूछा जाए तो इसको उत्तर देने वाला भी कोई भाई है, कोई बंधु है, कोई माई है, कोई बाप है।
And if this were to be asked, is there anyone who will be able to answer this? Is there any such brother? Is there any such fellow? Is there any such mother? Is there any such father? Anyone out there who can answer this? What was the question? That if the mental powers are inexhaustible, then how can you tie them down in some sort of limit and some sort of unit of consumption?
इसका पूछा जाए तो कौन उत्तर देगा?
So if this were to be asked, then who will answer this?
क्या जीवन को समझकर, इंटेलेक्चुअलिटी को समझकर इस प्रकार की जो एक प्रस्ताव रखा है, ये कहाँ तक मानव जाति के लिए उपकारी है?
That after understanding the Jeevan, after understanding intellectuality,
प्रकार की जो एक प्रस्ताव रखा है, ये कहाँ तक मानव जाति के लिए उपकारी है?
till how far is such a proposal beneficial to humankind? The proposal of intellectual property rights. At this point, I suppose it was still in discussion in 1999 or 7, I forget.
ये प्रश्न तो बना ही है, उसका उत्तर वही उन्हीं को देना चाहिए जो इस बात पर तुले हैं।
So this question continues to remain, and it must be answered by those who are insistent upon enforcing this.
मेरा अनुभव ये कहता है, मनुष्य की जीवन शक्ति को कितने भी उपयोग करो, वो कोई घटने वाला नहीं है।
My experience tells me that no matter you use as much of the Jeevan's power as you can, it is never going to reduce.
इसी का नाम अक्षयता है, साधारण बात।
This is what is called inexhaustibility, a simple fact.
आप अपने में अनुभव करिए, मैं अपने में अनुभव करूं, आप अपने में अनुभव करें, 700 करोड़ आदमी अनुभव करें, तो यही निकलता है हम कितने भी जीवन शक्ति को उपयोग करें, और जीवन शक्ति को उपयोग करने के लिए शक्तियां बिल्कुल यथावत ताजा और प्रखर, हर दिन प्रखर।
So this we can all try out for ourselves. We can all attempt, experiment ourselves. I can experiment in myself. You can experiment in yourself. They can experiment. All 700 crore of us can all experiment and test out in ourselves. that no matter how much of the Jeevan's powers that you use, they never reduce. In fact, every day they will be even fresher, even more refined than they were before. This is also something noteworthy.
करने के लिए शक्तियां बिल्कुल यथावत ताजा और प्रखर, हर दिन प्रखर, आज से कल प्रखर। हम जितना उपयोग किया वो प्रखरता के रूप में कल के लिए तैयार।
So they remain just as they were, in fact, even fresher and even more refined. Today, as refined as they are today, they will be even more refined tomorrow and even more refined the next time. So the more that we use our powers, the more refined they become. And I think that's all he said.
हम जितना उपयोग किया वो प्रखरता के रूप में कल के लिए तैयार बैठा है। इस विधि से हमारा जीवन शक्तियों को कितने भी उपयोग कर सकते हैं।
As much as we utilize today, they become even more refined and ready to be used for tomorrow. In this way, we can see that we can utilize our Jeevan's powers to whatever extent, to an unlimited extent. So I think we can pause here since it's time. What do you think?
Yeah, because I have guests also, so I'll go and join them.
Okay.
Very
yeah.
nice.
Sorry,
Mm.
that was not about human resource. That is another city. It was about intellectual property.
Yeah.
ठीक है.
Okay. So we meet now on Thursday, no?
Thursday, yeah.
And then Friday. And tomorrow is the other one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye. Bye, Prachi.
Bye.
Bye.